Okay, Mr. Jada, it's all yours. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Dr. Conte. Thank you, everybody. Dr. Conte, we want to welcome everybody to the show again this Sunday. We want to talk about a couple issues. First, we want to revisit the Central Bank of the Gambia scandal. And then we will also look a little bit more at the upcoming National Assembly elections in April. What has happened, what's going on the ground right now. And finally, we will look at the geopolitical events, Russia-Ukraine conflict, and the implications of that on global security, but particularly for Africa and the Gambia. So those are the things we'll look at briefly. First off, we will start with the Central Bank of the Gambia. Dr. Conte, I have to say again that I'm going to be on audio again. I'm still recovering from my injuries from last weekend. So it might take me a couple more weeks before I start reappearing on video. I guess this is going to look more like UDP's presidential campaign, virtual campaign, I would say. So, but that's the reality. So let's go on to the Central Bank of the Gambia. Dr. Conte, during the week, we saw that Central Bank of the Gambia finally came out with a press release, actually a press conference. This followed the events of corruption allegations at the Central Bank, which have been hotly discussed among Gambians. So we talked about that last week, and the assumption was that the allegations were true, that the central bank officials received $155 million from a private person with the hope of changing it into new loans. And during that process, millions of dollars again, up to over $11 million were transferred between participants and the central bank officials in the form of bribes to facilitate the exchange of these mutilated notes, they call them. So since then, the CBO official, Central Bank of the Gambia, CBG, not CBO, held a press conference last week to shed more light on this. And I have to admit that the governor of the central bank, Buasedi, who came out and gave a detailed description of what he knows about this issue, is quite commendable. However, a number of things came out there that may be a little bit more concerning also. That his detailed description of the security set up at the central bank, in my view, could be a little bit more, compromising of the security protocol. I think he pretty much laid out where all the security cameras are at the bank, and much more detail than I would expect. So I was like, this perhaps may constitute a breach of security protocol at the central bank as well. If somebody is to plan for future action at the central bank, you pretty much have a very good idea where these cameras are and where to go and disrupt them before you launch your activities. So that was a little bit too revealing for me, but I will leave that to the Gambians to judge. The press conference itself, Dr. Conte, if you look at it, it's a little bit funny to me in the sense that the IGP's office, the IGP was represented. I would assume the IGP represent the investigators because the police are the people investigating this matter. I know the central bank itself has its own internal investigation going on, but the matter is also with the police investigating, and they actually issued their preliminary findings, which I will come to shortly. But the fact that the police who are investigating this matter joined the Central Bank of the Gambia officials who are the accused in this matter, as well as the Ministry of Information and the government spokesperson in a joint press conference seems quite inappropriate to me. It looks to me that to convey a sense of impartiality and proper investigation, the police investigators should not be in any way associated with the Central Bank of the Gambia at this moment. They are the ones to be investigated, and they are the ones under investigation right now. They can hold their own press conference separately, but not jointly with the police who are investigating the matter, when the party that accused Central Bank is not represented. So it looks quite inappropriate to me to have these different groups from government, the police, and the central bank who are autonomous, supposedly autonomous, and under investigation to join together and give a joint press conference. That looks inappropriate. But also during the press conference, another controversy in my view that came up, I don't know if many Gambians are aware of this. There is a journalist that asked the IGP, who Abla is considered a dear friend of mine. We know each other way back during college days. And I have to admit, another friend of mine, Jabi, and I used to, actually three of us, we used to hang around at Abla's house at the police lines back in the day a lot, almost, throughout the week. We would hang out there, make a tire, and, so Abla is somebody I enormously respect, somebody I consider a friend as well. That's the IGP of the Gambia, Inspector General Police. But a journalist asked him whether, Gambian police are known to conduct investigations, and then the results of those investigations are never acted upon. They are left to gather dust on themselves. And this journalist wanted to know whether something like that will happen to this central bank investigation also. So I think IGP was a little bit not understanding of the question. And then the government spokesperson, another dear friend of mine, E.G. Sankari, had to intervene and seems to be jokingly telling the IGP what he means is whether you will kill the case. And I think he made a humorous comment like that. But to me, that wasn't funny at all. It may have given a bad impression that government officials are not taking these corruption issues very seriously. That's the impression I got from it. And I am afraid many Gambians may have come out with a similar impression from it also. So we need to take these allegations very seriously and investigate them vigorously and take appropriate action to deter future actions like that. And, it might have to take the president himself to intervene in many of these cases, suspend people, who are involved in these, and call for a proper investigation and giving timeline and promise speedy action on these matters. That's the only way we can discourage actions like this. Another thing, Dr. Conte, I want to say about this allegation is that the governor of the central bank, Mr. Sedi, said that if it's proven that this money, that is the $155 million, had entered the central bank, he will resign his job. In my view, I might be extremely critical here, but Dr. Conte, in my view, that was a bluff. And I think it is not the issue at all. I think the issue in front of the central bank and in front of the Gambian people is whether central bank officials accepted money from a private person, with the intention of changing it into new notes and requested bribes for that to facilitate that process. So the issue really is bordering on money laundering, potential or intended money laundering at the central bank and bribery. So whether that money actually entered the central bank or not is immaterial. It's not the point. The money may not have entered the central bank. But if the central bank official made an arrangement with a private person to receive that money, even if he hasn't actually received it, but to receive that money and requested bribes of an amount over any amount, but in this case, it's over $11 million, that alone is the problem. That alone is the destruction of the image of the central bank. That alone is destruction of our economy, because our economy is the central bank. Once the central bank loses its trust and integrity and independence, we don't have an economy. And Mr. Sedi himself laid out a very clear argument in defense of the integrity and trust of the central bank. But he has to recognize that the fact that the money may not have actually filtered its way into the central bank is not the issue. The issue is whether central bank officials have approached or entertained, a solicitation from a private person to receive $155 million to exchange that into new notes and requested bribes for that. That is the problem. That is what we are looking for. That is the answer to that is what we are looking for, whether that happened or not. It's not whether the money made its way into the central bank. So I think we need to clarify this, and these people need to understand that, because that's where the real damage is right now. So, I wanted to bring those things into perspective so that we know what we are dealing with and what we need to do, what the issues are that we need to focus on. Dr. Conte, do you have any? I don't know if you watched the press conference, but I would like to hear what you make of this central bank issue at all. And I understand that the accused person, Cisse Abdul Cisse, also denied this allegation. But of course, what do we expect? Would he say yes, it happened? No, we don't expect that. So obviously, if he has lawyers, they would advise him to deny everything, until it is proven in a court of law. And even if he doesn't have lawyers, his natural instinct would be to deny it, of course. So, Dr. Conte.
Well, no crook. Thank you. No crook would ever confirm that they stole. Only if you're gonna do plea bargain. And first of all, they said that this never happened. It was on a Sunday, and I said that would be the most perfect time to bring the money, because then in Banjul after 3 o'clock, it's a ghost town. And then on Sunday when government offices close, then that would have been the best time to do this transaction. The governor of the central bank denied that it ever happened. And then why would he now say something else otherwise? And he's bluffing. Uh, what I just don't understand, I used to work in a bank in the Gambia. Private citizens hardly have any transactions with the central bank, only because you don't have the only account that you may have will be if you purchase securities.
Right.
Yeah, but if you have to exchange notes, you go to private banks to do that. And
Right.
another area that I found very, you know, disturbing is the fact that no one even asked the source of funds for this 155 million. How can I just come in and try to exchange 155 million dollars without ascertaining where I got the money from? And question here is that was this money counterfeited? Was it counterfeit money? And no wonder if you look at the valuation of the Gambian dollar, say, do we have counterfeit currencies circulating in our country? Every time you try to engage, they will always say we are investigating. I'm not trying to talk about anybody's incompetence because I think the president is shielded to a point where those who are corrupt would not want him to know what is going on in our country. I firmly believe that Barrow is not the problem. We are the problem. They did this on the Ajame and they are repeating the same thing again on the Barrow. So I engaged the State House. I told them that this type of illegal activity should not be tolerated, and the president should act swift by suspending the governor of the central bank, the entire executive, if we are to have confidence in the nation's bank. And look at what Boaziadi did again. He's trying to control the narrative now that he wants to have an investment bank. So he knew that this news is ripe in the minds of Gambians. So he wants to change the narrative and say, we are going to have an investment bank. So this whole thing, I think the president now should suspend uh, Boazizi and his entire executive, so that we can have confidence in our market. Because the man, even when he talked about the value, remember when they tried to even uh, uh, bring the Gambian dollars here to a fixed amount, and we all queried about it. Now
Right.
they decided to let that go, and I don't understand how an economist as such who came to the United States here and I believe worked as an intern because that's what they do. They bring them there as intern or expert on Gambian matters for maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then they go back to Gambia and they elevate them to status. But this is quite interesting, that we had never seen anything like this happening in our country, where a private citizen can come with $155 million on a Sunday. And so I said, okay, don't we have police checkpoints? If I'm going to transport 155 million, how many bags will I have of that money to get to the central bank? And again, when they said that they had only 9 security personnel in the bank, I was alarmed by that. Because if you have 5-story buildings, every floor you're supposed to have at least three guards. So five, you should have 15 on any given day of the shift. So another one again, do they have any? Okay, they have cameras. Um, do they tamper with the cameras? I bet. I bet one of the entrances, the cameras probably were not working. Do they have the cameras that they have inside? Did they take picture? Do they have any pictures of anyone entering? And in fact, they have most sensors where it can tell what time the doors were open. So these are things that we need to have, because when you set cameras, you are trying to provide preventive methods to minimize theft, and this is very disturbing. And I think the president, Adam Barrow, should act swiftly and suspend this gentleman, the governor, and his entire team, because I have no confidence in any report that they're going to give subsequently on our economy. And this should not go under the rug. You know, this is sad. No one in the Gambian Galaxy has devalued. So how many of these types of transactions happen in our country, where maybe somebody can come again with another $1 million of counterfeit money, and it is circulated within. So because we're talking about exchanging, but we want to know whether that money is authentic. Is it was it counterfeited? So these are things that will happen in our country, and I now refuse to blame the president for our ills. I blame the civil servants, the corrupt government officials who are doing everything possible to steal as much as they can, because they've seen that the president is insulated and no one can get to him and tell him the truth. That's what is happening in our country. So I don't blame the president. And when you start talking like that, everybody thinks that you are. They say, "Oh, he's against your development agenda," which to me is not right. You know, so I wanna congratulate Seni Marina for coming forth with this. And when he said it before, a lot of people didn't believe him,
Right.
and some people want to take it as, oh, he's UDP, so he's doing this to tarnish the image of the president, which of course is not. The president wasn't aware of all this. You know, like I said, a crook, whether you support UDP, NPP, DOI, or GMC, GDC, PVP, NCP, NRP, you're still a crook. You don't represent the interests of Gambians. So we will continue to have these type of things in our country as long as the president is lenient on the crooks who are taking everything possible they can to benefit themselves.
Thank you, Dr. Conte. Thank you very much for that. A couple of things to in the press conference, the governor of the central bank made arguments about the fact that the accuser mentioned two IMF officials, and he claimed that those names are not found in IMF's in the list of IMF officials in the Gambia, and also that it is impossible for IMF officials to be involved in stuff like that. But in my view, and he relied on those things to rebut, to dispel the allegations and call it wrong and non-existent. But again, those claims are not material to the actual allegation, whether it is true or not. The accuser could have gotten those names wrong, or those names may not even exist, or IMF officials may not even be involved in this matter. All that is true, but that could be because the people at the central bank he was dealing with gave him those names, and maybe he may have even forgotten the names, because this has been over time. It's like a couple of years ago, I believe, I understand. And also, the central bank officials may have claimed that IMF officials are involved to give the impression of legality to what they are doing, or to give the impression that what they are doing is doable and is legitimate, and they have the ability to do it. When somebody is pulling a criminal act like that, they usually would try to make themselves look like people who have the ability and the support and the authority to do something like this, because after all, they're receiving money from you for this action to be executed. So they want to give you the impression that they can do it. Right. So it may have just come to that. But small items like that, little things like that can be thrashed out in court if the matter ever goes to court. But you cannot rely on those kind of things to dismiss the whole thing as not true. It goes beyond that. And the next thing I wanted to say also, Dr. Conte, I don't know if the central bank, I know back in the day when I was in the Gambia, and I said this last time, my friend and I, we go to central bank. Every month when we receive our salaries, we go to the bank, our banks, we go to our private banks, commercial banks. We draw money from our bank accounts and then go to the central bank and exchange those notes into freshly minted bills, new bills. We did that many times at the central bank. And my friend who introduced me to this, I didn't even know that was possible. My friend introduced me to it. We used to work together. He's a non-Gambian at the time. I think he is now a naturalized Gambian. But he is a non-Gambian at the time. He was from the neighboring countries in the sub-region. We were very good friends. And, he introduced me to that. And, of course, I like new bills in my wallet at the time, too, So we would go every month, go to the central bank, issue our old notes, and then they change it into new bills for us. So, this is something that exists. It happens in Gambia. I don't know how lawful it is. I don't know if the central bank should be even doing that or not. I see now looking back at all this, it looks to me that they shouldn't be doing that. But yes, they did it. And they have been doing it. All the time I was in Gambia, I have been doing it. At the time I wasn't really aware of the security and implications of this, but I would go there every month with my friend, issue old bills, and they change it to new bills. And we don't even go inside. We go to the gate and the security people let us in, and then, somebody comes down, receive our old bills, and go inside, come back with the new bills, in a matter of no time. So I don't know the security protocols they do or what they do, but they have been doing this for us. My friend is still in the Gambia. He can be a witness. We did this numerous times, and he's the one who introduced me to it. So it must have been going on for long. So, so if private people like me and my friend can do it, I suspect powerful business people, powerful criminals may be doing it too, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I want to say, Dr. Conte. So, but I think also the police investigators are pretty quick to call this. They issue a preliminary result of their findings and they call it a scam. I don't know what they base that on. This doesn't look like, at least to me at this moment, I think it is too early to call it a scam. I think they should refrain from, making categorical statements like that. They should, just write or publish, the facts of their findings, rather than making a categorical, conclusive. Since it's a preliminary result, I don't expect a categorical statement like calling it a scam. That doesn't help the investigation. They could have just listed out the facts of their findings as we stand now, and indicate that the investigations are continuing. And then they will do further investigation. When the investigation is complete, looking all the facts they have, they can make a categorical statement that based on the information they have and based on their findings, it is likely that this claim is a scam. They don't see any evidence that it ever took place. That would be understandable. But if you issue a preliminary statement and you make that preliminary result a categorical a statement like it's a scam. It just baffles me how you can come to that kind of a conclusion with a preliminary finding. So I don't know what's going on in the Gambia. First of all, I have said this. I think the whole idea of the setup of the press conference doesn't look good. The optics is really bad. The group of people who collaborated in that press conference should not be like that. They should not be together. The investigators and the police, they cannot be seen to be in cahoots with the accused person, the accused institution. That is the Central Bank of the Gambia, as well as people from the president's office. It kind of gives a blow to the whole investigation. Totally. Dr. Kondo, we can move on to.
Yeah, let me make some clarification when you talk about IMF officials. Those two folks that they have mentioned, those guys were on contract from the Gambia. One was on contract from the Gambia government to IMF. So, in fact, that person's contract ended, and I believe they are back in the Gambia. So, when they say IMF officials, these were folks who were loaned to IMF, and they were specialists on Gambia. So they were not fully employed by IMF.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, Dr. Conte, for that. Next, we go to the upcoming National Assembly elections. We're going to be quite brief on that.
Okay.
Not so much has changed since last weekend. The only updates to it are pretty much like NPP, President Barrow's party, National People's Party, has finally made it clear that they are putting up 40 candidates across the country. They are leaving the Fonies, the 5 seats in the Fonies to APRC, and then the single seat, PPP's single seat in Banjul to Tumanjai, or whoever PPP is going to put up there. And I think it looks like APRC finally has come around and agreed to this new plan. Well, I think APRC is also given 2 additional seats besides the 5 seats in Fonyi. They are given Joswang, I think, and Serakunda, I believe, right? Serakunda West. I think they have those 2 additional seats, making it 7 seats. Banjul PPP still has their single seat in Banjul. So that is that for NPP. I don't know how PPP is, how they feel about this, but as far as APRC is concerned, I think they are okay with that new arrangement, which pretty much kind of seals. UDP, I think up to now, still going to be running across the country. They'll put up candidates. I think they have started their selection process as well. But I think the big news is that my Ahmed Fati of GMC has declared that he's running in Woolly West. He's going to run against the veteran incumbent there, Sidia Jata of PDOIS. We will look at that. I personally don't think Mai has a very good chance against Sidia in Woolly West. But it will be interesting to see how this plays out. I understand he's from that area. He has a strong support there as well. But he's also going to be challenged by a potential UDP candidate there in the name of Tida Kijera, who was actually a member of the GMC of my Ahmed Fati himself. So the GMC support base there is likely to be split between these 2 candidates who are going to face off each other there. So that will be an advantage for Mr. Jata, Sidia Jata in Woolly West. as well. So that is possibility is likely to diminish my chances in winning. It is quite interesting, though, that presidential candidates in the Gambia typically are shone down. They look low upon running as National Assembly members. Many of them only prefer to vie for the presidency. Upon losing that, they do not see it necessary to run for National Assembly seat. It used to happen in the past during PPP days. I remember SM Diba used to run as a presidential candidate, and whenever he loses, he runs also as a National Assembly. Matter of fact, he has served as a National Assembly member for Badibu for many terms after losing the presidential elections. Recently, that has not been happening a lot. UDP never did it. Dabo never wanted to be a National Assembly member, and Kande never ran. He was once a National Assembly member on the APRC, but since he started running for the presidential elections, he has refrained from running as National Assembly member. So my decision to run as a National Assembly member is kind of a precedent recently. But we'll see how that plays out. I know he hasn't been able to participate in the last presidential election, so that may have influenced his decision to run as a man. But we'll see how this plays out. Dr. Conte, what do you observe about the dynamics of the National Assembly?
Well,
Candidates.
first of all, Willie West is just a repetition of Upper Fuladu West. Most likely, I've counted about 7 candidates running in Willie West. And unfortunately, what's going to happen if they vote on tribal lines, NPP is going to win. And the reason is Mai is from Kerawan, Tida is from the same place. And when it comes to population, they are at a disadvantage. And so the Nyakwe area or Tabatu, they are not going to vote for Mai because of some incident happened between him and those villagers. Now, what's going to happen? CDS base is going to be caught in, and it's going to be advantage to NPP. Mark, I want you to check that out. Unfortunately, I would like to. I welcome my intention to run. I think if my wins, the dynamics in the National Assembly will change because we have people who, since they've been in Parliament, they have never said a single word. And what is happening? Because last week I had a bit of argument with a nominated member. And I told him that the executive should have nothing whatsoever to tell local areas who their nominees will be. I said the folks should nominate their candidates. I'm not going to name names, but how can you have a National Assembly member who cannot even read? And now some people are calling for, oh, we need to speak in our local languages. And we're a former British colony. Most of our constitution is written in English. And in fact, if you ask a person to speak in their local language, what language are they going to choose, especially if they come from diverse areas? And I'm very disappointed, that even in Brufut, the National Assembly member had never said a single word since he came to Parliament. And they're going to renominate this dude to represent the people of Brufut. Come on, that's sad. And then I listened to our National Assembly members. They cannot even pronounce words. Their sentences, they cannot speak good English. Grammar is so poor. And so if these people cannot read and a budget is presented in front of them, or they have, they have other issues relative to education, health. How are they going to be able to articulate, that? Unfortunately, in the Gambia, if you are highly educated, they're shown on you. They think that Gambians in general tend to downplay educated people, and this is why we cannot move anywhere. Let me just give you an example, which I was very disturbed, and I even questioned whether Halifa was thinking when they approved a project to the tune of 34 million US dollars. And I spoke to an accountant in the Gambia. I said, why would they approve a project in the middle of a budget year? I said that should have been factored in the budget that was passed in December. Oh, it's not a loan. I say it is a loan. I said the road is it Batil Hadi Highway from the
Right.
airport or to Senegambia. I said OIC contributed certain amount, but they did not contribute 100% of the funding for the road. So Gambia government's contribution is 34 million US dollars, which is 1.8 billion. So how could the National Assembly approve a bill knowing that the government is going to take loan in the middle of a fiscal year? So therefore, we are if they put that there and they incur the expenditure before December, they're going to be asking for supplementary approval for excess spending that they've done. So we don't have capable people in Parliament, unfortunately, to articulate the problems of our country. I sometimes I'm just so dumbfounded when they would go and look at 2015 audit report, but they cannot even look at 2017. And I told a National Assembly member in accounting, we're talking about timeliness of information that is related to relevance of the information. I say, why are you going out there looking for historical data as far back as 2013 when you actually were not in parliament? What you should be looking for is 2017, and they try to argue. So these are things that we have. So we have incompetent people in in our National Assembly because they vote for someone just because you are a youth organizer, that you can organize youth to go and play soccer, and then you can speak the local language. But when you come to Parliament, you cannot say anything. I mean, this is sad, So uh, and we're going to have the same people. Unfortunately, the National Assembly member for Talending is going to come there, and she can't even read. So how on
That's not
earth
right.
she can't? No, we're
That's
not
not
going to say her name, but she can't
right.
read.
I know.
We can't say her name. She cannot read.
Yeah.
So how can you bring somebody? I can tell you, very few parliamentarians have the intellect to articulate issues that we have in our country. But yes, still, these are the ones who are going to represent us. No wonder because I believe in separation of power. I think that we should have a national assembly that we can have intelligent people out there who can articulate our issues. And I may disagree with my party, and if my wins, it will change the dynamics in our country. And I don't really understand again, Dr. Ismaila Cisse. Since the election, no one has heard about him. He's so quiet and so forth. He should be running for parliament. So that we can have people in parliament that can articulate our problems. And then when it comes to next election, people can say, "Oh yeah, this guy is so good that we'll support him to run for president." So it seems like most of us are self-serving. You get what you want, and after they give you what you want, I'm not accusing anyone of anything like that, but that's what's happening in our country. They all want to run. When Yahya Jammeh was there, they never said anything. They all kept quiet. And now after Yahya Jammeh, when Barrow came in, they all want to run. And now after the election, it seems that all of them are mute, even including SFR. And I believe if SR goes out there also and runs, don't look down on those things.
Right.
In the U.S. we had Senator Obama became president, Biden became president. So you start somewhere to climb up the ladder. But it seems
Right.
like our people just look down on everything. So no wonder we cannot grow, we can't go anywhere because we have people who cannot articulate the issues that we have in our country. Hopefully, maybe people like me, next election, we will have to volunteer and run in our own constituencies and see whether voters will vote for us, even if you have to represent them one term. Because can you believe somebody going to parliament? You've never said a single word since then, and they're gonna reward you again for nomination again. Come on. We used to be a
Thank you,
country.
Dr.
We used to be a country when Gambians traveled and met other Africans, and a lot of folks were impressed by Gambian intellectuals at forums in the continent of Africa. But now that's not the case. So I don't know.
Thank you, Dr. Conte. Very well said. It is absolutely true. There's a lot of deficit in capability at the Gambia's National Assembly. I think some of these things started after the change in 2016 when the coalition came into being. Many of especially after Barrow won, the coalition came into existence. When the National Assembly election came up, many of the candidates who ran under UDP were selected based on loyalty, and it was more like payback time. So because of that, many of them, they were not scrutinized based on their competence and their capabilities, but basically their loyalty to the party. And that is why we have many of these National Assembly members, mostly from UDP, who really have no capability at all in the National Assembly. And it looks like those of them who switch their allegiance to Barrow later on are all going to be retained. There are 8 of them there, and NPP is retaining all of them as their candidates. Again, it's payback time. They'll be rewarded for their loyalty to President Barrow. So they're going to run again, and NPP will support their candidacy. So we're going to have those people, most likely again to continue with their seats at the National Assembly. So this perennial problem of lack of capacity, capability, competence at the National Assembly, we're going to have to live with for some time. In the case of my party, though, I wouldn't really think it's going to. We have Willie West is currently represented by Sidiata. I don't think Mike can bring more value to the people of Willie West by replacing Sidiata. I think Sidiata is very competent in the National Assembly. I don't think Mike would, be absolutely a value to the National Assembly, but not when he replaces somebody like Sidiata. I wish he was able to run in another constituency other than Willie West, and probably come to National Assembly in addition to City and not replacing him. But of course, they share the same constituency. It looks like Willie West is the only place he could run for elections. So he's going to have to go against Syria, which I do not believe he's going to succeed in replacing. I think Syria brings a lot of value to the National Assembly. No doubt Mai would be a value too. But in my view, not when he replaces somebody like Syria. So, Dr. Conte, I think NPP made it clear. I have to re-emphasize, the NPP also made it clear that they're keeping the 8 seats of the renegade UDP members who switch to Barrow's camp. They're going to keep all of them. So we're going to have to live with those for some time. So I don't know if you have anything else to add on to this. Otherwise, we'll move to my final topic.
You can go to your final topic.
All right, thank you again, Dr. Conte. I briefly want to, as the last leg of our discussion today, I briefly want to look at the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. This is on the global scene, but I think it may have some relevance to Africa and the Gambia, and I want to briefly talk about that. Like I said the last time, when I talk about this issue, I think it's long been coming. It dates all the way back to 1992 when the Soviet Union collapsed under Gorbachev, Mikhail Gorbachev. At the time, at the time of the collapse of the USSR, U.S. presidents, successive U.S. presidents, actually promised Russian leaders that NATO would not expand into Soviet backyard. But this situation, these are not treaties. They were just assurances, verbal assurances. They were not treaties between Russia and the West. I'm using the word West. It's been used a lot lately. It's a loaded term, but it is a highly contested term also, Dr. Conte. It is. I think I recognize it. I look at it only. Its relevance only in the Cold War geopolitics. We like to call Western Europe and their ally in U.S. Vis-a-vis Eastern Europe. So West-East dichotomy in geopolitics is my understanding and recognition of the term West. It is a highly contested concept when we stretch it to mean Western heritage or Western civilization. That is quite, first of all, we talk about Western heritage or Western civilization, Dr. Conte, we tend to be referring to capitalism, Christianity, democracy, rule of law, freedom. These are not exclusively Western concepts. These are pretty much very arguably universal concepts. So Western heritage, Western civilization in that respect is highly contested. So I'm not using it in that sense at all. I'm only using it in terms of geopolitics, in the sense that we are talking about derived from the Cold War concept of Western Europe vis-a-vis Eastern Europe political systems. That is the perspective I'm using. Dr. Conte, since then, I have said last time that both President Clinton and President Bush went against that promise. They went ahead and admitted many countries from the Soviet sphere of influence into NATO. And Soviet Union has been very apprehensive of NATO. NATO has been the main security for Europe and the United States. Actually, after the end of the Cold War, many Europeans were very skeptical of the relevance of NATO. It's been argued by France under Mitterrand, Francois Mitterrand, that NATO should be abolished. It has outlived its relevance. But of course, there were other issues that made NATO to stick around. Some of them, Europe's own internal insecurities vis-a-vis Germany, West and East Germany being combined to form one Germany. The power of that Germany has been concerning to many Europeans. So we still have NATO. And interestingly, NATO has never acted during the Cold War. The only time NATO acted has been after the end of the Cold War, in Kosovo, the war in Kosovo, the war in Libya, and also, to some extent, Afghanistan. And in all of these cases, none of these countries were NATO members. So NATO went to act in these countries against its own Article 5. Many people argue that NATO's action in these countries were illegal. And, last time I mentioned that even Bill Clinton admitted to that by saying that the actions of NATO in Kosovo was illegal but was legitimate. And I don't know what that means, but that is what he said. But going back to this conflict vis-a-vis Africa, Gambia particularly, Dr. Conte, it is that it's been argued by political scientists that the first Gulf War, waged by first Bush, H.W. Bush, in 1991, 1992, was a precedent. It actually reset the global order. It became the way, the norm, how to deal with global conflicts later on. So we saw, after that conflict in 1991, many of the global security issues, conflicts that emerged afterwards, were dealt with in this particular way. So there is concern that Russia's action in Ukraine is going to be a precedent again. It's going to reset the global order in that it may define the future of how conflicts will be resolved around the world. And these are serious implications for countries like Taiwan that China is considering as not a legitimate state, but as part of China. It may have similar consequences for countries like South Korea, where North Korea is next door and is always threatening to attack. Even to some extent, places like Hong Kong may all be affected. China's action in the South China Sea also, with its neighbors in Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos, can become a hotbed also. So these are serious implications on global order. For Africa and for Gambia particularly, the immediate consequences of this would be probably effect on our economies. Gambia trades very heavily with China. And if China goes into conflict with Taiwan or in the South China Sea, this may disrupt trade with China. Also, the impact of global energy prices, which has been a major driving force, factor of inflation in Gambia and in many West African countries, could be enormous as well. I understand Gambia does not directly import oil from Russia, but as Russia is a major exporter of energy around the world, oil around the world, as the Russia's imports of energy around the world declines, this may eventually affect Gambia's access to global energy products, and as well as other African countries. It may temporarily benefit some countries like Nigeria, who are major oil exporters too. But I think in the long run, it will eventually affect prices of these energy products. That has been a big source of inflation for increasing energy prices for Gambia and much of Africa. It will definitely affect the prices of other commodities as well. As energy prices go up, prices of other commodities equally go up because production and transportation of those things also are influenced by energy prices. Dr. Conte, another thing that we talk about a lot in the media today and in society is that the timing of this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. I've heard some people argue that Russia picked this time because Biden is weak and incompetent. I don't really share that that perspective. I do think that Putin like himself, he said that this is a desperate move for him because he had to do this um, to stop Ukraine from joining NATO and developing nuclear weapons. Lame excuses, but I think the reason that Putin did not act during Trump's rule is largely because Trump was doing Putin's job for him. Trump was busy dismantling NATO. Trump was busy, undermining U.S. relationship with its European partners. Uh, and as well as Trump undermining U.S. democratic institutions themselves. Trump is an admirer of Putin's autocratic ways. And to some extent, Trump fears Putin. For whatever reason, Putin seems to have some grip on Trump. I don't know why. Maybe he has some, damaging information about him. Maybe something else. But Trump doesn't seem to be able to look into Putin's eyes and tell him the truth. We also what happened in Helsinki. When literally Trump was crawling at Putin's feet. He had to even disagree with his U.S. national security experts to agree with Putin. So the argument that Putin took this time because of weaknesses in Biden's administration, I don't think it's really plausible. I think the only reason is that Putin would not act during Trump's rule because Trump likely was doing Putin's bidding for him. I think that's the reality, and I hope Putin doesn't succeed in Ukraine. Ukrainians are very tough and they're very loyal to their country. They have not abandoned their country and their ideology to stick with freedom and economic prosperity. Now, part of the reason why made Soviet Union, the collapse of the Soviet Union, easy in the 1990s, in early 1990s, 92 to be specific, was that at the time of the collapse of the USSR, many Soviet elites have abandoned the ideology of the USSR, and they have abandoned their loyalty to the state. So it was very, very easy for the state to crumble, to collapse. We have not seen that kind of a shift in Ukraine. Even with this difficulty they are facing, many of their citizens are still very loyal to the ideology. They are very loyal to the country and their idea of development, prosperity, and freedom. This is what I want to say, Dr. Conte, and then we can wrap this up unless you have something to add to this.
Well, I'm an avid listener. I watch MSNBC. So the other station that talks about Biden being weak, because they want to sabotage everything, that he proposes, even build back America. And then we have two senators, Democratic senators, who are so scared of taking the Democratic, view because they're scared of their own re-election, that they are more or less Republicans. So how on earth can Biden's agenda be passed when you have two senators who refuse to come and work with the rest of the Democratic delegation? So it's going to make him weak. When Republicans come, they unite through intimidation. But Democrats want to have compromise, to have this big tent where everyone can come in. So that has created problems. But another area that we all fail to understand is the COVID. COVID actually has created a lot of financial instability, economic instability in the country. And as a result, it's not going to be a short-term solution to the country's problems. I was just talking to an economist yesterday, and I was trying to tell him how we accountants look at interest rates, and we look at the accounting equation. we look at equity financing and debt financing, and I told him that I think the Federal Reserve made a mistake to increase the interest rates, or even speculation of increasing interest rates. Because if the Federal Reserve is the nation's bank and they up the interest rate, the companies who are going out there to borrow money, their interest rate is going to be higher. So if I have money and I want to invest to buy a stock, I am going to be expecting to pay less money because no, I'm going to be requiring them to pay me more money because of the increase in interest rates. So as a result, more people going to go and invest in debt, meaning buy bonds as opposed to buy equity. So that has happened, and also speculation. Yeah, the uncertainty that we have in the country. The the price of gasoline, crude oil has gone up, and the United States has no control over. And but this inflation, in my view, will tamper down maybe within 6 months before we hopefully for elections. But no one can sit and wait for an intimidator, a Napoleon-style mentality that Putin has. That Biden did not, you know, rally behind, or world leaders did not rally behind the United States. This could have been disastrous. So, what is happening in the economy? All of us have going through that, and it's going to be a short term. If you look at the stock market, and I want you to look at one thing the other day when the stock market on Thursday was 678 points down. And when Biden spoke and added more sanctions to Russia, and the Federal Reserve decided not to go ahead with the speculation of the interest rate increase, the stock market went from a negative 678 to a positive 92. And then the next day, the day before yesterday, Friday, it registered 800 and some points. So I say, well, now businesses and investors are now looking to say that we cannot allow Putin to, intimidate, because he had said it, that you wait until he's done, the price of gasoline will go up. So, and I'm just so marveled the by Senator Romney, who actually was questioning the patriotism of Americans who actually support Putin. I thought the Republican Party was a party they were hawkish people, and they were people who detest communism. But I'm just so surprised, that now Fox and the rest of those crew members are out there supporting Putin. And Putin actually knows that he's on the wrong side of history, because there will never be a Soviet Union. You think about how many millionaires were created after the fall of the Soviet Union, and then this is what I don't understand. Okay, the gentleman, the president of Ukraine, is Jewish. Now he's calling him. They calling them Nazis, drug dealers, because that's the kind of message they expect. Is going to resonate. But those folks are adamant to have their own country. And in fact, I was just so surprised. How can you have a tanker coming down on your way to the capital of Ukraine, and then you run out of gas? You didn't read. You didn't see that in the news that they were out there looking for gas. So they didn't even know where they were going. So they have logistical problems. So what I'm saying, Biden, I think Biden has he can redeem himself. This is just a sabotage by the Republican Party to make him look bad, and the two members of Congress, Senate, who are there, are the ones who are unwilling to work with him. So If you have 50-50 chamber majority, uh, if one goes that way, you lose everything. I used to like Manson, but now I'm just so disappointed at him. And cinema should actually have known better. So let's hope that next election, your state, no, that's Missouri. If they nominate the former governor, chances are a Democrat's gonna win. Let's hope that we can have a win in Pennsylvania and in North Carolina and retain the senator from Arizona and also the senator from Georgia. If that happens, there's a likelihood that Democrats may have only one seat majority. But the Mansons and that cinema, they are the ones who are creating problems for Democrats, and it's time for people to call them out. I taught in West Virginia, and I'm telling you, they're one of the nicest people on earth. I think it's the most friendliest state in the union. There are some people that when you meet them in the parking lot, like in some other states, you wouldn't even say hi to them because you know how prejudiced they are. But in West Virginia, I've met those type of people. They will say they always greet you. And I'm telling you, for months, and because I've seen poverty in West Virginia. If someone were to tell you that somebody lives in this house, he will say no until you see somebody coming out from the house, or you see maybe a nice looking car in park in the yard. So I don't understand. I don't understand it. I think the Democrats can rally again, but it's kind of difficult when you have two senators who, when you say let's do this, they go that way. I hope the nomination of the Supreme Court. Do you notice that she looks African? And
Who's that?
the Kachinja. Do you know that her first? Do you know her first and middle names are African?
Right.
So I was talking to a Nigerian. She said, "Oh, she looks Igbo." I said, and then we look at the name Oyenda or something. And but but the thing is this: when people talk about the Republicans going to take over, for the life of me, how come minorities vote in presidential elections, but we don't go out there to vote during off-year elections? They are not better than us. All of us will have to go and vote. And I hope the Republicans can make that mistake, to say that the list is not qualified. She's well qualified than the previous three people who were selected to nominated to lead.
She's gonna be confirmed.
She's gonna be confirmed, Right? It's amazing. It's amazing how. Well, I'm trying to see Marco Rubio and Scott, because the lady was raised in Washington, D.C. She was born in Washington, D.C., but she grew up in Miami, Florida, and graduated from Palmetto High School. So let's see whether those two senators from Florida are going to support, because it will be negative for a senator to reject a candidate from your own state.
But thank you, Dr. Conte. Thank you very much. Thank you for another Sunday.
Okay.
We'll meet again next Sunday. Thank you, our audience. Thank you for listening to us. Like I said, we stream both on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. Send us your comments, your perspectives, and we'll see you again. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Thanks, Dr. Conte.
Bye-bye.